Welcome everyone to this episode of Highlights, you guys. Today I am so stoked. We have friggin' Amy Landino on the Highlights podcast. Amy, what's up?
I'm great. Erin, what's going on? Thanks for having me.
Oh my gosh, coming in hot from Connecticut and everything from the
Yeah.
in-laws. Doing it. Oh my gosh. Well, I'm so pumped to have you here. For those of you who don't know Amy, and most of my tribe, I would assume does, but if you don't, Amy is a best-selling author. She has this super cool show called Amy TV. She's like one of the OG YouTubers, you guys. She has awesome books that she's written. The one we're talking about today is Good Morning, Good Life, but her other book was called Vlog Like a Boss, which is kind of your breakthrough book. But just an all-around badass contenter, an official influencer with the blue check and everything, and just a rad human. So Amy, I have so many things to ask you. I reread your book this morning, and Good Morning, Good Life is our topic for today. 5 simple habits to master your mornings and upgrade your life. Before we dive in to all the questions, why this book? Why did you write this book?
It was just, I don't make anything unless it's requested of me because I make video. Vlog Like a Boss was such a moment for me because I was like, I don't understand why you guys want a book about video. Like what? I don't understand. And it really was that way. I mean, I started speaking, so that sort of just, it all culminated from that. But because I listened to my audience so much on that one and said like, hey, you guys want a book about video? Let's do it. And then the channel kind of like went more into the productivity and lifestyle space. And from that, we birthed the next big topic, which really was like getting your life together first thing in the morning. Because if you can't do it the rest of the day, then like, how are you going to do it? So it was just the thing that people asked of me. I don't like to make something, especially if people are saying they're going to buy it, but you've got to be a business person. You have to make sure that people are telling the truth and when they say they really want something. And until I really had that critical mass of people that were like, take all these morning topics and put them in a book, I was just not going to do it. But it was really the next natural topic for me because that particular um, lifestyle, I guess, is the reason that I've been able to figure out time management and success and growing a business and not letting that business fail in the short term. It had a lot to do with just being very specific and rigid and particular and intentional about my time. And if you can't figure it out from the start of the day, you're not going to be able to figure it out the rest of the day. And I really believe that.
Well, it's so good. And I love this quote on page 162 where you said, a good morning routine is not a goal, which I was like, oh, I thought this was the whole point of the book. But you said, a good morning routine is a path to your goals. When you use the opportunity to show yourself what you're willing to do to respect yourself, you'll quickly answer a lot of other questions about what you're capable of accomplishing. So that 30,000 foot view of engineering this foundation for treasuring your time made me lean forward and say, okay, I'm getting this. It's not about that you drink the lemon water and you do the breathing and the exercise and all the things. It's a bigger why, right?
Absolutely. And that's why we can talk more in detail about the actual like things you do in a routine. But
Yeah.
that's exactly right. Like to me, it's not about the fact that you meditated. If that serves you, then fantastic. But for the most part, we are usually, postponing the inevitable when we just roll out of bed and get ready for work and then commute and get there barely on time and finally maybe have a thought by the time we sit down and have our cup of coffee and have to do work.
Yeah.
And it's just like, if you keep going about life that way, you never really live for anything other than evenings and weekends and just squeaking in whatever fun time you can. And then that alone is like, well, was that even what I wanted for my life? Was my whole life just going to happy hour after work? Or was my whole life, just being excited to have days off on the weekend? And I never really liked that. I never really understood that way of thinking, especially when I started to say, I want to start a business. How do I do that?
Yeah.
And it's like, you have to be so clear on making time for yourself to be able to navigate that. Starting to say no to things becomes incredibly important.
It's so hard.
And that's really what it's about. That's what it's about.
Well, okay, so there's so much there we need to unpack. I'm going to jump to what you just said because I was going to end with that, but let's start there. Page 90 and 91, you say, and I like to quote this because I don't want to misquote you.
I
You
love this.
say, when you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. Sounds pretty obvious, but yes to sleep, no to exercise. Okay. Yes to scrolling social media. No to brainstorming your new big project. When you start realizing there's only so much time and you only have so many yeses to give, you really appreciate the yeses you say to yourself. Start increasing the yeses to yourself so the yeses to others are even more meaningful for everyone involved.
Mm.
Boom. It's so true. And so, why is it so hard? I mean, it is so hard to say yes to ourselves. And do you think it's because we really prioritize ourselves last and we don't value our time, or do you think it's more we just fear the reactions of others in our
I
lives?
I think everything comes down to taking everything too personally, because even if you are devaluing your time for yourself, you're only doing that not because you're a vicious human to yourself, but because you think if you don't do the outside commitment thing or the thing everyone's expecting you to do. By the way, all of this is manufactured in your own mindset.
Right.
Um, if you think that you are underserving others in order for you to have your own benefit, you're basically taking personal already what you think will happen in turn. And funny enough, avoiding potentially someone saying you're selfish because you don't want to have that conversation because you don't think you are selfish, but you're not even doing anything that would be selfish because you just keep serving the outside. So to me,
Yeah.
yes, I think it all comes. I know that's very convoluted, but it really does come down to the fact that we pray for bad things all the time. It's called worrying. And it's
Mhm.
like we have to stop doing that, because here's the worst thing that's going to happen. You're exactly right. Someone's going to call you selfish, or someone's going to say you only care about yourself, or you don't make enough time for XYZ. That's fine, but everyone sees the world as they see it, not as you are. So if that's the case, they're just projecting. And it takes a serious place of confidence. And I respect that. It takes a serious place of confidence to know that, to see that, to react accordingly to that, because we all want to go on the defensive when that happens.
Yeah.
So, all this in mind, so much easier to just say, I'll just do what everybody wants me to do, because I
It's
don't
so
even
true.
want to have that conversation. I don't want to have to stand up for myself. I don't mind. It's fine. I'll do this.
Yeah.
I'll do that. And if once you do that, let's just talk about the everyday. You have a 9 to 5 job. You maybe wake up whenever your boss starts emailing you because they're crazy or whatever, and you're constantly serving the outside world. Can you imagine if you actually wanted to do something for yourself
Yeah.
and start a business, or go completely virtual? You realize, man, I really hate having to report to a job and I want to be on my own terms because this pandemic thing made me realize it. Whatever. You start to reassess some things. Imagine how hard that's going to be, because now every day I still have to deal with this. This problem never ends. Absolutely never ends. You will always have the problem of worrying that somebody thinks you should be doing something while you are doing something else, or thinking you'd like to do something else. And I own a business. I have to constantly think about what that looks like from a leadership standpoint, from a culture standpoint. I have to balance between what I need to do to take care of people and what I need to do to take care of me. Because
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I wouldn't have done all this, taken all this risk, gone this direction in my life if it wasn't going to benefit me somehow, because I have
Totally.
to take it on. No one can sit in my seat. Nobody can take on this risk. Nobody has to deal with this but me. So as you continue to venture toward that, you gain a little bit more confidence. But if you never do, nobody's going to hand you that permission on a platter,
Mhm.
saying like, go live your best life. I will
Yeah.
support you wholeheartedly. Even if they do say that, which amazing if you have cheerleaders in those camps, there's still going to be moments where they think you should do something the way they think you should do something. That's never going to not be a problem.
Well, it's so true, and even the people that are so close to us that are our cheerleaders and are in our fan camp. I mean, you talk about your husband in the book and how your morning routine when you first got engaged or married or moved in, and he
Hmm.
was kinda like, "Hey, like, why are you just leaving in the morning? And that struck me because my husband and I also, we work together. And when we first started dating, I would get up and do my thing and do my workout and like get everything ready, my journaling and all these things. And he kind of took it personally, like he would get a little hurt. Like, and I
Yeah.
was trying to explain to him, like, this is not about me not loving you. This is about
Right.
needing to carve out that space to be who you need me to be. And then
Right.
it escalated quickly. You have a chapter talking about the bedroom and how you're sleeping and where you're sleeping. And we'll get to the details of that later. But it reminded me because we actually created a bed it's two full it's like two California full beds that push together. So we have one sheet on top, but there's two different beds because he is like freewheeling all night and worrying about the world's problems and like pulling sheets and God knows what. And I sleep like I die. Like I go to sleep and I wake up and that's it. So we've like figured it out, right? It's not like I don't want to be in the same bed with you. I do. And I need my beauty sleep. So it's that interesting
Correct.
line that you draw, right? So
Hmm.
no, it's so good. And so when we think about our morning routine, I mean, we all know that routine is good for us. And for those people that are listening that are like me and are telling ourselves this very unpopular narrative of, well, I'm allergic to routine, I'm allergic to planning. I mean, I wear this kind of like a badge. And I will say that I felt very attacked in the best possible way on page 66 when you said, just letting everything happen from the moment you wake up. It adds a little bit of drama to an otherwise completely normal day. We test ourselves to find out what we're really capable of accomplishing. You see, these self-sabotaging tests are what I call an addiction to drama. I was like, whew. So for those of us that are listening, if we are addicted to the drama of the uncertainty of the morning routine, what do we do? Where do we start?
This is that awkward moment where you're like, I know there's people addicted to drama listening and they don't know it. So like, just hear me out. I mean, here's the thing. If someone says I'm allergic to routine, I just want to ask, like, well, what routines do you have in your life? I do believe that there are people who are against the idea of routine, but an actual routine is something that happens routinely. So there is routine in your life. And so my question is more like, okay, then how have those routines made it through the threshold of okayness, right? That's why I really wanted to write this book because again, it wasn't about meditating and writing and doing this. Like, it's not about checking off some arbitrary list that looked good on a YouTube channel or in an Instagram photo. It's about doing what's right for you. And if what's right for
Mhm.
you is just being able to wake up and have a complete hour of anything you want before you have to answer to the world, I think that'd be the dopest routine ever for somebody who is anti routine. It's
Right.
just how you shape it. But the addiction to drama to me is just that, we've all done this before, right? Where it's like, oh, yeah, I got that bill that's due and I could pay it right now, but like, I don't have to. So like
Right.
I might wait until the last minute. And we test the boundaries not because we want the world to end, but because sometimes life's just kind of boring right now.
Yeah.
And so like maybe I might just do a couple things to make it interesting. And we don't think that's that interesting, but rolling out of bed, rushing into the shower, jumping into the car, and getting to work barely on time because you didn't make enough time to find a parking spot in the garage, and then your boss is mad at you, might be the most lively part of your day. And you don't know that you need that liveliness until you go, oh, yeah, that was the best part of my day yesterday.
Yeah.
And it sucked because it was all in my control. And so I know that it sounds kind of harsh, but I would just like people to think that the best part of their day could be something they wanted to happen,
Yeah.
and not that they were postponing something they didn't want to happen.
Mhm. Well, that was a big takeaway is unpacking that psychological backstory that I didn't really even think was going on for me, but now that you said it like that, it's like, gosh, especially in these times, in the pandemic times where we used to have a lot of us had very exciting jet setting lives and venues and energy exchanges with audiences and new towns and
Yeah.
seeing old friends. And it was a
Mhm.
super fun time. And then for the last 6 months, which I'm calling the pandemic because, I'm not wearing any pants with buttons. But I really feel like, in that time, my life for sure became a little bit more routine than I was comfortable with. And so I think I started to engineer those moments of that need for certainty, but also uncertainty that we
Yeah,
all sort of flux between. So, um,
totally.
It's very true. So you talk a lot in the book, a lot about communication. You come back to that multiple times. So if we have a hard time communicating either to our partner or to our dog or to our household that it's mama's time and we need the space, how do we start to become more comfortable with communicating to the people around us? Or maybe how do we start becoming more comfortable communicating that honestly to ourselves, that maybe we are ready for a change in how we start our day?
Yeah, and here's the thing, just like I know that sounds like such a cop out, right? Like everything's about communication, but it's
Yeah.
just like anything, it's all practice. If we never practice the ability to set boundaries, then those boundaries are never going to be happening because we're never setting them.
Mm.
We're not just setting them, we're not holding people accountable to them.
Hmm.
And so, it's funny, you might remember like a person or a situation really well because of how well they set boundaries. And, oh, well, that person really doesn't like when we do this. That's how you tend to know that person is just really good at setting boundaries. And you're only talking about them because of their ability to do that. And so it really comes down to practice. And oftentimes we get bad practice. There's bad routine of leave me alone. I'm working. And then you're like, oh my gosh, I just told my kid to leave me alone. Like
Yeah.
nobody wants to do that either. It's not about practicing, get out of my office. It's practicing the teaching moment of it. And although I don't have children, and so I dance around this topic as much as possible because I don't have the true experience, because communicating with a dog is wildly different than a human being. It still is an opportunity in my eyes to say how things work around here. Depending on the age of this kid, how can you teach them that? As a matter of fact, if it's like this is my morning routine, but you're up also, that's okay. You can have a morning routine too. Why? Because morning routines are really nice and really lovely and really healthy.
Hmm.
So, how can I teach you to have your version of that? And how can I talk about what this time is supposed to mean? You might do a lot of teaching during what's supposed to be your time, but you may also in the long term end up with a situation of, oh, this person gets me now and they're also trying to do something similar, because it may be that they want to be more like you, maybe in this situation of a child. But
Hmm.
with a partner, my husband's just wildly respectful, because instead of just leave me alone, this is my morning routine, it was more, no, 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 let me just tell you like why I need this, because I'm an introvert that needs to rehabilitate herself on a regular basis so that I can be at a level that is supportive of you when we're having conversation or when we go out with our friends. And I want to be able to sustain that, not feel like I'm draining the gas tank. So
Yeah.
now over time of having this conversation, like, listen, I'm sorry, I'm just like really not there yet. Haven't had my cup of coffee. I've only been up for 20 minutes. Like I'm still not there yet. Every once in a while, and he gets it. He's just like, that's fine. If he sees that my dressing room door is shut, he doesn't come in. Like he might come in and kiss me, good morning, whatever. But he's out. He just understands, because we are different people. And it's just about saying it's okay that we're different. I'll see
Yeah.
you when I'm at your level. My husband, when he
Yeah.
wakes up, he's firing it off all cylinders. It's just ready to go. Like he's got things, talk, ideas ready. And I'm like, I don't, wait, what? I don't know. That's not who
Yeah.
I am.
Yeah.
And it's okay for that to be the case. But if I don't communicate that and I just stop someone in their tracks, like that doesn't make me a lovely person to be in a relationship with. Or I'm not going to stop you from being you, just like I really hope you're not going to stop me from being me. And
Right.
that's what makes a really healthy relationship. So I it really is just like I say the same thing in every book I write, apparently. Communication and practice. It just comes down to practicing it. And a lot of people are out of practice when it comes to setting boundaries and letting others know what is best for them, because they're worried about what's to come if you were to have the audacity to explain what's best for you.
Right. And it's interesting because oftentimes, especially as women, we tend to really kick it down the road because we're thinking it's not that bad, it's okay. Oftentimes, I know, even I'll admit with my husband, sometimes you just like don't have the energy to like really just unpack it all. You're just like, you know what, F it. Like, I'm tired. Like, is it not a big deal?
Yeah.
Pick your battles, you know? But
Yeah.
the problem is when we sweep it under the rug and when we don't communicate, I need this time. This is important to me. This is how I recharge. This is
Mhm.
the split bed that I need with the one sheet on top,
Mhm.
whatever it is.
Mhm.
Um, we tend to, it doesn't go, it's like debt. It just builds up. And then one day it's the huge explosion. Now it's the World War III and now everything's falling apart. It's a meltdown. It's a quarantine nightmare. Right. So, um,
Yeah.
you
Let me
know,
just speak to that really quickly because
yeah.
because I completely agree in picking your battles. But at the same time, I think that we got so hip to that phrase, but we didn't think about really what are the battles that we're picking.
Mm,
And so all I've decided is my time is extremely valuable to me and there's a non-negotiable period of time I need to have to myself or at least until like I'm a parent and then like I just have no choice whatsoever. Let's say if that were to happen, right? I need that time. So that is a battle that I consistently pick, which is where I get the practice from. But then I'm also a firm believer in stoicism. And if my husband does something crazy or like somebody says something off to me or I don't like something my team did and I'm like, okay, but like was it that bad? Was it really going to screw up big picture? Because there is a micromanaging and like you said, you explode. You really explode about the things that are close to your heart,
mhm.
not the bull. Like the bull just kind of like adds on to everything, but the thing that makes you explode, like truly makes you explode, what was it that you didn't get your practice rounds in on? Like
Mm,
what were
mhm.
you not setting boundaries for? Because I find that I'm able to, like we said, pick my battles on the stuff that just like does not matter,
Yeah.
period, because I've been able to own it on the things that are actually going to make a wild difference in my demeanor and my outlook, in my depression level, like any of those things that's keeping us even keel. We need to think about. And it's hard to talk about those things, but we do need to think about them.
Well, it's a muscle. Like you said in your book, you talked a lot about how you just feel better when you set the tone and you do practice and you do show up and you keep putting in the reps. But then you also offer us permission in the book to give ourselves a break if we slip and a couple days go by and not be this extreme thing where either you are the saint of the good morning good life, scripture, or you're a hot mess. I mean, there's somewhere in between, which is called reality in life. And I loved how you kind of gave us that permission to say, so what, a couple of days come, you have someone visiting, you travel, whatever, just get back on the horse when you can. And or find
Totally.
smaller ways. I mean, you offer some great ways in the book where you talk about, hey, if you have 5 minutes, if you have 10 minutes, it's just the bigger idea of setting that moment for you to lay the foundation for living this bigger, bolder, upgraded life, to use your word. Um, so I think one thing that I want to talk about a little bit is this idea of morning pages, because I have been a morning page enthusiast for a long time. And then I realized I started reading my morning pages. And for those of you who are not practitioners of journaling, it's just basically you open up your journal and you just bleh, you just word vomit whatever comes out in the page for 3, 4, 5 pages. And the idea is that you're supposed to just see what kind of comes out. And I first heard about this from, I think it was either Liz Gilbert or Jen Hatmaker, one of those two, but it's a pretty popular thing for a lot of us creatives to do. I stopped doing it because I realized when I looked at my morning pages, I got depressed and judgy about myself because I look like a heinous complaining bitch on these pages. Like everything was just like boohoo, poor me, 1% crap. And so I just stopped doing it because I didn't want to see how I showed up in the morning. But then in your book, what I loved is on page 152, which is totally inspiring. You sort of give us permission and you say, look, like the idea is that this is a moment where you can, if you want clarity and a better mindset, get the crap out of your own head and you'll be closer every day. And so you talk about just doing this brain dump, but basically you say it's okay for it to just be a detox to kind of have that clean sheet of paper in your mind to start creating. So are you a diet?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I just thought it was
Oh my
great.
gosh. And by the way, if anyone wants to feel better about this, I mean like I Julia Cameron is the one that talks about this in The Artist's Way. I believe it was her IP, but I don't know if she got it from
Okay.
somewhere, but it's in that book. And she has a page on her website dedicated to this. It's got a video on it. It's so sweet. This woman's talking to the camera explaining morning pages. I'm so glad she did because we need this permission. First of all, because we are not perfect human beings, right? So I think all of us are very excited about our journals that we're going to pass on to our great, 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 great grandchildren. And we want to go back and be like, wow, wow, what a stunner she was. Like, but the reality is that morning pages are not that intention. There, if you're talking about different types of journaling, morning pages is simply just to dump your brain so that you can move on to more productive thinking.
Yeah.
And so if you've actually done it right, and I just loved hearing Julia explain it because she's just like so elegant when she's saying like, you should sound like you're complaining and annoying, because if you can't get that stuff out of your mind and somewhere else, it doesn't have anywhere to go, essentially. And then
Mhm.
how are you supposed to have a creative thought or a new idea or execute on something that is without limitations for this dream that you have if you're too busy still holding grudges from the day before or thinking about a bad dream? And at first I thought this is probably crap, but I started to do it, and I definitely don't reread mine, because while I'm
Smart.
writing it, I'm like, this is awful. I hope never anyone reads this, even though I still keep them for some reason. But I'm doing it because I have realized that by the time I close that journal and I move on to the next couple things, do a little bit of gratefulness writing, I'll read the Daily Stoic, I go through my little morning routine tick marks that I love. And then once I have gone into the mode of where I want to be, all of those ideas that were pissing me off before are gone, because I have now like compartmentalized them in a drawer. They're done. And I think that's huge. And a lot of us don't do that in general. You could do that through therapy. That might be the better thing for you if you just hate writing. That it might be therapy. You just need to pay someone to let you not pick your battles and just talk about
Yeah.
like, why does no one know that the dishwasher exists? I'm the only one that knows that there's a dishwasher, right? Like that there, you've got to find your place for that. And I've explored therapy because I believe that you should explore all avenues in life. I've just found that morning pages is there for me every single day. I have my
Mm.
journal with me, and I'm 12 and a half hours driving from home right now. Like I need it because I know I'm going to need to be able to unload something that is not worth having a conversation with someone else about. What I've learned about venting, I think, unless someone's being paid to listen to you vent, is that venting, even when you say you're venting, it's so hard to not invite unwanted additional opinion. Like you just want to vent. The only time I've ever felt good venting was through morning pages, because nobody said anything back to me and it just was over. Like that's
Yeah.
it. So yeah, I think if you've done it right, if you read it back, it's repulsive and you hate yourself because
I felt.
you've actually unloaded the crap from your mind and you moved on to something better. So yeah, I
Yeah.
think a lot of people, I made a video about morning pages that I spent a lot of time on because I was really worried that people were thinking too hard about it. Everything from people were writing in a journal this big and they were like, I can't fill 3 pages. I don't have that many thoughts in my head. I was like, guys, get a 5x7. It's a lot easier to fill 3 pages. You overthink it when you think about the logistics of it.
Mhm.
You don't have to have a thought. If you don't have anything to write down, you say, I don't have anything to write. I don't have anything to write. I hate morning pages because I never have anything to write. It's practice. Like that's it. Because if
Yeah.
that's true, that means you woke up on a pretty good page. You got nothing annoying you, nothing extraordinary happening. So you don't write anything down. That's okay. At least that's how you started the day, was with a really, truly fresh slate. And I think that that's the purpose of it.
It makes so much sense. And I think for people listening that are like, okay, so there's morning pages, there is daily stoic, there's all these things. Let's back it up and let's talk basically about how you can create your own perfect good morning routine. Where does
Sure.
someone start if they haven't read the book yet? How do they figure out which parts of all the recommendations? You have these incredible, I mean, if you don't know where to start, there's ideas on ideas, but how do they figure out where will have the most impact for them, just if they're like beginning to this whole idea?
Absolutely. So, I mean, I like to tell people that you should pick 3 pillars for your morning. I think just to make sure you've kind of covered all your bases. So, there's 3 pillars in the Good Morning, Good Life methodology. It's your movement, your mindfulness, and your mastery. I put them in that order just because I like reverse alphabetical order. No other reason. I typically do mindfulness first and movement last. It's completely up to you. But we have a master list in the book, as Erin was talking about, and I break it out into different sections. And there might be a moment where you go, oh, Amy put reading down as mastery, but I think of it more as my mindfulness. And I actually do read for mindfulness more than I read for mastery in the mornings. But that you can, it's customizable. What was bothering me about the morning routine situation is everybody thought that they needed to do everything a certain way based on what they read or what they saw. And I don't believe that, because then it's not truly your time. And the point of the whole thing is to make it your time. So what I actually think you should do is think about those three pillars. Like if you had to pick, like, and I'll explain them a little bit more, what would they maybe look like? But even more important than that is understand how much time you actually have. And this
Mm-hmm.
is what we just released, the Good Morning Good Life planner, again in a more hardcover format, and it walks you through your timeline map. Do you even know how much time you have in the morning? Because you want to reverse engineer that. What time do you need to go to bed in order to get 8 hours of sleep, in order to get, let's say, 45 minutes to an hour for a morning routine before you need to start going through all the motions of getting ready for work and yada, yada, yada. It really depends on everybody's individual situation. But I think that's the most important thing. Let's say you have an hour, and so you have roughly 20 minutes, or probably about 20 minutes for each of those pillars, or maybe you spend a little bit more time on one than the other. I'm not a
Mm-hmm.
morning worker outer, but you might be somebody who says, like, oh, I really want to do my spin class for my movement piece in the morning. Well, that's fine. That's probably going to take a little bit more time. So it's about scheduling that in so you can feel good about the fact that you're dedicating this time intentionally, but you actually have it. Because rushing through your morning routine isn't going to be helpful either. The three pillars I talk about are, again, movement, mindfulness, mastery. Movement, just get the body moving. Obviously, I do a little bit of stretching. I do my skincare. I like move the muscles around my face. That's pretty much good enough for me.
Little
I'm a
jade
I'm a
roller.
late
I love
morning.
a good
Yeah,
jade roller. Oh, love
yeah.
it. Cold
I
in the
just like to
fridge.
just wake up my eyes. Like
Yeah.
that's good enough for me. I'm more of like a late morning worker outer, but somebody might need to do their fitness first thing in the morning. That's one way that you can do that. So movement, lots of different options there. Just taking a walk, going and get your coffee somewhere. Mindfulness. So morning pages is an amazing example of mindfulness. Just sort of the biggest piece here is we're not picking up our phone. We're not scrolling Instagram. We're not checking our email. We're not checking the text from the night before. We're not, you name it, right? The outside accountability stuff that we think we have to do first thing in the morning. We're not doing that. What are you doing to just be mindful about this moment? Whether it's a little bit of gratefulness journaling or morning pages, or you want to meditate for 5 minutes, what can you do to just postpone all that time you're going to be spending on social or looking at the outside world all the time? What can you do to postpone that and just get on the same page as yourself? The biggest thing that I see with everybody is, what should I do? What should I do? What should I do? What should I do?
Mm.
You're always looking for outside purpose. But the mindfulness moment is that opportunity for you to say, like, what do I actually think? What do I actually feel? What do I actually want to do? And like I said before, for the non-routiners, for the allergic routiners, right? Like, have a mindfulness moment to just be like, what do I want to do for the next hour?
Yeah.
Just sit and think about that. That's a great moment for mindfulness. Really just getting on the same page as yourself, because I think we lose ourselves all the time. We're looking at the highlight reels on Instagram, and we're looking at reality television, and we're looking at the news, and we're looking at the politics, and we lose ourselves a lot, and we have to remember what's important to us. So that's really the big thing for mindfulness. And mastery, I think, is a really magical opportunity for a lot of people, because many people who talk to me who are saying they don't like their existing situation, would like a different one, whether it means they want a new job, or they want to be promoted, or they want to start a business, or they want to start a side hustle. So mastery is really that opportunity to say, like, hey, you never have time to learn a foreign language, you never have time to work on your side hustle, well, that's your mastery time. What can you do
Mm-hmm.
during your mastery time? What's the goal that you're reaching for right now? I want to start a podcast. Okay, great. Well, find that 25, 30-minute pocket of time in your morning routine to work on your thing. Set the timer, do it, progress yourself just a little bit further, so that you go through the rest of your day thinking, at least I did something for that. And it
Mhm.
oftentimes will motivate us to prioritize that time later in the day where we find it, whether we spend the lunch break working on our favorite thing, or after work we prep dinner for everyone and then kids go to sleep and we focus on ourselves in the evening. We do that a lot in the evening, but we're also tired humans in the evening. So
Yeah.
anything you can get in the morning, I think, really progresses you and moves you forward. So those are just the three pillars that I think have been extremely valuable in my career, have helped me a lot, because there was a time I was side hustling and I needed to be able to make time for myself in order to make that dream come true. And so that's how, what I like to tell people to do is just find those three pillars that work in your life.
It's so good, Amy. It really is. And it's a great way to be able to start and just look at your life and look at what you're doing. And even if you just start with one, if you're listening to this and you're like, oh my God, I am literally just operating, maybe even just pick one to get started that you think you can even do in 5 minutes. It's better than nothing. And you're laying that foundation. I mean, I think the one thing that I thought was really surprising in the book was you talked about these buffer zones, buffer times, which,
Yeah, I kind of breezed over that when I was talking about reverse
yeah,
engineering. So I like
that
to
was
talk about the sleep
interesting.
buffer period
Yeah.
because, it's like, okay, so let's say you got to wake up at a certain time and you're like, I got to be in bed by 10. Well, do you got to be in bed by 10 or do you need to be sleeping by 10? Because if you need to be
Yeah.
sleeping by 10, you should probably be in bed by 9:30. And if you're in bed by 9:30, do you think you're taking your phone with you? Because your phone's going to keep you awake from 9:30 to 10. So you're not
Mhm.
going to fall asleep at 10. And so it's about that. So what's that buffer period? And part of my morning routine is my buffer period. When I wake up, I'm not like banging out of, I'm not like morning routine girl, what's up? Like that's not me. I am not there. And so for that first half hour, I am just trying to walk through my house blindly, wash my face, brush my teeth, and go downstairs, make my lemon water so that, put the dog out. That's the first 30 minutes is just mobilizing life. And then I bring my lemon water back upstairs when I let the dog back in and she's eating and I leave and I start my morning pages. So you're already 30 minutes in at that point, and I've done my movement, got my lemon water, which kind of leads into that mindfulness, and I dive into mindfulness. But that 30 minutes when I first wake up and the 30 minutes before I go to bed are very intentionally meant for not a lot, because I got to fall asleep and then I got to wake up. And we just assume like, oh, it's fine. I'll just sleep from 11 to 5 and I'll be fine. Well, first of all, that's not enough sleep. And second of all, the likelihood your body falls asleep, wakes up when you've told it to, other than the fact that an alarm can disrupt it, it's tough. So I just talk about sort of like that come down period. I don't
Mhm.
have my phone in my life for an hour before I want to be asleep. So it's like a half an hour before the half an hour I'm going to fall asleep.
Yeah.
I'm brushing my teeth. Like thinking about it that way will make it much more likely that things are going to go your way. Now, again, people have sleep issues, like real sleep issues.
Sure.
Most people say they can't sleep, but they can't sleep and then they get on their phone.
Right.
All you're doing is introducing blue light that is not going to let you fall asleep. I am not a doctor. You need to talk to your doctor about your sleep issues, but let's be honest, guys, we know about blue light at this point. Blue light is keeping us awake. The phone even adjusts now after a certain time with yellow light to help you a little bit with not straining your eyes. But
Mhm.
regardless, that device is meant to keep your attention. And so it
Yeah.
doesn't matter what time it is, it's going to do its job. So that's really why I included that, not because I'm a sleep expert, but
Right.
because if I'm honestly telling you to find a couple hours or 30 minutes in the morning for yourself, you've got to get it from somewhere. We're
Right.
reverse engineering. And so you have to set yourself up for success.
It's so good, and just that takeoff and that landing period. So, like, budgeting for the takeoff and the landing, I think is a game changer because even when I first started doing this Good Morning, Good Life routine about a month ago, I skipped over the buffer part and I found that I was like, why am I so late for stuff? Like, I'm not, because we really do, everything takes longer than you think. You want to have that time to just check back in with the world and check in with yourself before
Yep.
you even get started. And the phone thing is huge. There's a book I read a couple months ago called Irresistible, and it explains the technology and how it was intentionally designed to keep us addicted, just like slot machines and triggering the same areas of our brain as alcohol and drugs and all this stuff. And the guy that invented the pull down refresh technology has like fully admitted that he doesn't let his kids use phones and that he thinks he may have like ruined the world. So, I mean, it's full on. I mean, it's real, and it's a real thing. And you know, I go through these phases where I know one of your friends in the book, I think you said, gave you like a little sleeping bag for your phone, and my friend Christine Cashin does that as well, and fellow Gemini, and so I have one of her little, you know, phone beds where you put your phone to bed,
Yeah.
and it is a game changer as far as just being present, you know, looking at your husband, maybe just reading and falling asleep, just having that moment where you're just not with the notifications and the Pavlovian response. And I'll fall off the wagon sometimes, and I'll be like, okay, well, just for tonight, I'm gonna like look at it because I didn't really have time. And it's
Yeah.
all these excuses to get sucked back into that world of tech addiction.
Yeah.
And you know, we really are in these relationships with our partners, with our animals, with our children, with our friends, but we're also in a relationship with these damn devices. And so DTRing, I really think, is so important, defining the relationship you want to have with this phone, especially when it comes to changing the way that you are taking off and landing through your
Hmm.
day. I mean, it's huge. Um,
Absolutely.
it is huge. So I want to do a quick pivot. We talked a little bit about on page 109, you talked about imposter syndrome, which is kind of a hard right from what we're talking about right now, but I do want to make sure we touch on this.
I think it goes hand in hand with a lot of things because
Okay.
confidence and everything kind of plays into that, right? Like
Yeah.
just having the ability to say and set boundaries. Imposter syndrome happens all the time.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's funny because I started my very first planner after I read your book, right before your planner came out, which I am bummed out about, but I'll get your planner when I finish this one. Um,
It's sold out anyway. It's totally fine.
Good for you. It's so awesome. It's so good. Um, but you know, I've run multiple companies. I've run multiple teams of employees on the corporate side and the entrepreneurial side. I mean, I've run e-commerce businesses and agencies, and I've done all of this without really being a huge planner. And so I have this idea in my mind where I'm not into planning. But I read this book and I was like, I am going to become a planner. Like, this is my new jam. Like, I am going to be a 30-minute blocking just babe. Okay. So I read this part of the chapter and I thought it was interesting because it says imposter syndrome might pop up for you when you're doing things a little differently in your life. And I was looking at my planner even just this morning and I was like, who am I kidding? Like, I'm not a planner. Like, this, like, who am I? Like, this is so dumb. Like, oh, put it on Instagram so everyone thinks you're more organized than you are. And I started kind of negative talking, kind of going to crazy town. And you know, you said there's a lot of things that a lot of ways it pops up in our lives. And I'm curious, you know, when you have those voices coming up and saying, you know, it's a waste of your time, you know that you say, you're not an imposter. You're a beautiful spirit who is currently doing this physical thing called life. It's an anomaly, and you are not a fraud if you simply refuse to waste it. Don't waste it. I love that. So, how do you overcome your imposter syndrome, Amy?
I often find that my imposter syndrome manifests in just the minutia. Like I just get so into the details. Like I will scientifically like try to map it out and be like, yeah, nah, that's not gonna work. So don't worry about it. So what I like to do, I think Tim Ferriss inspires me a lot in terms of he asks such good questions. Like he's just got these like really thought-provoking questions he'll just ask himself, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I write them all down because I'm like, I need to ask myself that more often.
Yeah.
And one of them is, what would this look like if it were easier?
Mm.
And so typically if I'm having imposter syndrome, I'm getting a little too much into the minutia. That's what I'll ask myself. What would this look like if it was easier? Like what would this look like if it was just easy to do? Because again, if something were easy, everyone would be doing it. So obviously not everything is easy, but if you just kind of took away all of the extra details and all of the extra stuff and said, you know, what would this look like if it was easy? It allows me to reroute where my head is going because imposter syndrome is also easy when you do something habitually, which is, like I said, the details of how I think. So now I'm asking myself something that allows me to think about it differently, which will hopefully veer me away from my typical negative self talk, however it manifests itself, which is typically in the details of like, oh, that'll take this too long and this. No, okay, well, what would it look like if it were easier? And now instead of asking myself if I'm capable of it, I would I would literally only be thinking of my capabilities to be able to make it easier. And then you really do find interesting answers to that question, because
Hmm.
sometimes you end up doing something completely different because you realize something that could be easier, or you just give it a try and see if it's easier than you actually thought it was. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, that's really what I do. And to your point, right? Like becoming a time batching, calendar blocking, queen, it's like it's really empowering at first when you see like, look at how much intention I have on this,
Yeah.
but it's a lot of work. Like even I'm batching my whole life. I tell my audience all the time, give me a date and a time, I can tell you what I was doing, because I always mark it down. I want to know what I was doing, and I don't think that you can efficiently manage or better use your time if you don't know what you've been doing, if you only
Yeah.
think you know what you've been doing. But yeah, it's things move, things get
Yeah.
rescheduled, and it's okay, because then you can start to understand, this takes me longer than I thought it did. Okay, great. Plan for it, or this didn't go as I expected, or I hate this. Look at how much time this takes, and I hate this. Why am I
Yeah.
doing it? And I think
Yeah.
that's important to look at.
It is. I mean, you can't manage what you can't measure, right? And so that it's just the metrics around it and the accountability are awesome. I will say, I read your book a month ago, and I was super into my routine. I was like, I am literally better than everyone in the world right now. Like I'm glowing. Like I was so productive. I was like, look at my skin. I mean, I was like obsessed. Like this is literally the ticket, right? Then I got a
Yeah.
dog, and my whole routine fell apart. And I was reading your book again this morning, and the whole section I loved, because you were talking about a lot throughout the book. You say, look, like, do you, whatever your routine is, if it's 5 minutes, if it's just an hour, being like, what do I want to do? You're very forgiving and very open and very like, everyone be who they want to be.
Yeah.
And then you also have a pretty tough love part of the book that I liked, where you talk about how you're sticking with the routine. Like, how do you either get back on the horse if you've fallen off? How do you stick with it? Because it is the reps, it is the practice, it is hard, it's all these things. And your advice is kind of really the unsexy advice that's the truth, which is that there are no shortcuts. Just try harder. And I loved on page 213 when you said, look, you stick with your good morning by believing that there is always something better for you on the horizon. It doesn't mean that you don't appreciate what you have now. And believe me, you will not survive without gratitude. Hashtag amen. But when you are driven and feel excited by what you can make happen for yourself, your morning routine will be the simplest thing to maintain. I thought that was so powerful, because what you're talking about is, it's not this like diet or this program or this thing that you have to, because you said, and the checklist and the accountability and it's like, no, like, do you believe there's something better for yourself on the horizon?
Yeah.
Do you really want that? You'll either find a way or find an excuse. And so I think that the stick to itness of, there is no secret, you have to just keep showing up, is really powerful.
100%. I mean, like, again, it just goes back to, a routine is habitual because it becomes habitual. And we
Yeah.
always talk about creating a routine, but like, it's not, 21 days and it's not about that. Who knows how long it's going to be? But why would you be counting to 21 if you weren't keeping this thing going? It's not like there's a switch. You're not a robot. Someone's not going to switch on that something is now a routine for you. It's really, and that's why I say it's got to be custom to you, and
Hmm.
stick with it. I mean, like, I really think the biggest thing is, if you aren't sticking with something because it doesn't feel right, or you're just like, why am I doing this? This is annoying. Then, like, is this really the right routine for you? Or are you still doing something that was not designed for your life?
Yeah.
Now, I would love to say that like working out is not for me. It's just not a thing I like to do. But like there's a different element of that. Like I find workouts that I enjoy. I find things, and I know for a fact that I hate having to drive somewhere, work out with anybody, and be there and have the whole thing take 2 hours, when I know full well that I can get an efficient 20-25 minute workout in without a lot of hubbub at my house while my dog is sleeping undisturbed. That is too sexy for me. So I'm much more likely to do something if it takes less time and I can do it at home, and body weight or just some light weights. Love my Peloton. I have my things I choose from so that I'm excited to get back on.
Hmm.
Not like, oh, why am I still doing this? Which is how I
Right.
typically am with a trainer. But if I'm not self aware about that, of course I'm going to quit that habit. It
Hmm.
doesn't have a shot. So what I think is exciting about this is when you're designing it for you, stick with it because guess what? If you're doing it right, it's probably something you want to do.
Hmm.
And more the issue of sticking with it might be that other people are interrupting you or they're telling you to stop making time for yourself, and you might have to combat that a little bit. But if you can't stick with something because you hate it, then it's like this is defeats the purpose in general, because you could just roll out of bed and report to other people and hate that just as much. It's the same culture for you. You're never really getting a morning that starts on your terms. So
Yeah.
I would like to think that even if like maybe the alarm going off is the hardest part for everybody, but after that it's like a really great fun like ideal hour 2 hours for yourself, that it will be easier over time to get through that initial ugh like of the alarm and then move into that. But if the whole bit sucks, then no, of course you're not going to stick with it.
Yeah.
It's got to be the right one for you.
Like relationships, like dating. You should wanna show up,
Yes,
wanna be with that person, right? It shouldn't be a
totally.
constant struggle where you're, like, hanging in there all the time, right? You wanna be like,
Right,
"I wanna be here, right? I wanna do this for me."
right.
So, it's so good, Amy. It's great.
Thanks.
So tell us, okay, so last question about the book. Tell us about if you had to have a surprising answer to this question. What is the one thing about your routine in the morning, your routine, that is kind of random that people don't know about, but that you really love? Like something that you do in the morning that you're like, this is so random, but I actually really love this part of my routine.
Oh gosh, that's oh, okay. Well, okay, my skincare, I think everybody knows. Like, everybody knows I'm obsessed with like washing my face, apparently. But lately, because we bought a house right before the pandemic, my favorite thing is feeding the birds in the yard. So it really is like it's gotten to a point where my husband's like, "Oh my gosh, we have to start a budget for bird feed because like Amy's ordering bird feed all the time." And I am ordering bird feed all the time. I've never really been like a mother of the earth type of person. I'm not even a dog person. Like I always say like, yeah, cute dog, like whatever. But like a beagle, like I'm like, yeah, beagles, like Lucy. I am a Lucy person, right? So Lucy's my beagle. But other than that, like I'm not really like that. But we moved into this house and I don't know, I just thought this would be kind of nice. They're around, but they're not really in our yard. And we had one good tree. I put a feeder on it. I can't get enough. I'm like a birder now. My best friend's calling me a birder, like I'm a bird watcher.
That's
Cause I'm
amazing.
like looking, I'm like, oh my God, that one looks just like a cardinal. And then my husband's like, that's because it is a cardinal. And I'm like, oh my gosh. It's like so that's been my morning routine is like I have to take the bird feeder down. So Lucy goes outside to pee. I take the bird feeder down. I like shovel my bird feed in there because they eat a lot of it because they know I refill it so much. They eat a lot. My neighbors are like, we've never had this many birds in our yard. I'm like, that's because they hang out in your tree because they wait for me to feed them. And
That's
then
so awesome.
we do our thing. I sit outside if I can in the summer when it's nice out. Not for my morning routine. I like to keep that like under wraps.
Sure.
But outside in for lunch in the afternoon, I'm just watching them go ahead. Oh my gosh, it's been like really oddly fulfilling. Really oddly fulfilling.
That is incredible. We have hummingbird feeders as of last month as well, and we're so into it. We're like checking it out.
Wow.
We're like, oh my God, the kegs kicked. They drank all the like nectar. We're refilling it. I'm like just watching these humming. I'm like, who am I? Like, who's a bird person?
Right?
Like, it's like hashtag weird COVID shit that you'd never
Like
think you'd be into.
also, yeah,
I mean,
hashtag we're getting old. I
we're
think that's
getting
what
old.
it is.
And I literally, I mean, I was on a Zoom call with a publishing company for my new book, and this hummingbird flew directly into our house. It was mayhem, like knocked over my water. The dog's barking. The hummingbird's like running into the
Freaking
computer screen. We're like trying to corral it. It's a whole thing. But the bird thing is just another weird part of what I'm no longer calling the new normal. I'm calling it the weird now. So it's just weird now stuff that we that we find ourselves in these times. So what are you gonna do? Oh my gosh, Amy, I think you just frozen the best possible screenshot. I'm going to can you still hear me? Did we lose you? Oh no, I think we lost Amy. Let me see if we can get her back on here. Amy, can you hear me? Of course, we lost you on the bird talk. Okay, let's see. Are we still live? Yeah, we're still live. Okay, guys. So we're trying to wait for Amy to come back online in this incredible frozen pose. But for those of you who have not read Good Morning, Good Life, let's see, pop them back in here. Add to stream. What is better than one Amy Landino? I think it's two Amy Landinos. Let's see. I think she's coming in here. Well, if you have not read Good Morning, Good Life, friends, this is the book to read. 5 Simple Habits to what's better than one Amy Landino? Two Amy Landinos.
It worked out. Okay. I'm sorry about that.
No, it's just funny because it was like an awkward bird conversation and then it froze and there was a great face and it
moment
was
to leave you.
par for the course. I was just telling our remaining 7 friends hanging in here, Good Morning, Good Life. This is the book to get. Amy has an awesome new planner out, which is sold out. Let's see it. Oh, it's so beautiful. Look at that.
We'll be restocking very, very soon. It was so amazing to see like how many people were into it like I am. So very exciting. We'll be restocking soon. There's an email list if you would like to find out more details.
Yes, we would. And I cannot wait to check it out. Guys, this book is awesome. Definitely recommend you have a look. If you're not following Amy, follow her at Schmittastic, right? And Amy, last question before I let you go. Tell us of all of the books that you're reading, if you're doing mindfulness reading or learning Italian or whatever you're reading these days, do you have a nonfiction author that you're really jamming on lately?
Right now I'm reading The Effective Executive by Peter Drucker. So that one's been really cool because it's not really presented as like a business owner. It's also an OG book. Like it's definitely good. Yeah. But I think it's really insightful, not just for like business owners. It really is speaking to people who tend to be at the executive or managerial level that are having to navigate managing their time in a way that's also working with the type of work that they have to do, which is maybe collaborative or having people report to you. Yeah, I'm very much enjoying that right now. And I'm always reading something nonfiction. The Daily Stoic, First Thing in the Morning by Ryan Holiday. I reread it. I should say this. I'm rereading it for the second time, and it's just like a page, of you to just get a little bit of perspective on some of those things that you just don't have to worry yourself with so much throughout the day.
It's so good. And the way that he puts his book together where it's so easy to work it into the routine, right? Because here's the date and here is the nugget of wisdom. And actually, I think it was 2 days ago, he sent one that the title was, It's Good to Be Beaten Up from Time to Time. And I don't know if he is plugged in on some other vibrational level, but I feel like it's almost like the Bible where like you get the message that you need for that morning.
I totally agree.
I had been beaten up like crap. And then I looked at this email and I was like, oh, wait, this is a good thing. And I just felt like it was just so good.
Well, yeah. And so not only is there that email list, but the Daily Stoic I read the daily entries from the actual book. So what's even wilder about that is like, I still feel like he knew what to write on that exact day every single year, because it's just he breaks it up. Every month is around a different sort of overall topic and the whole thing. I love what he's doing. I think he's just absolutely mastered sort of allowing us to learn what the Stoics were trying to teach on a much more like layman's level. And I definitely feel a lot more even keel on the day to day, just trying to remember a lot of those philosophies in my mind.
It's good because you know that it's been working for thousands of years. And it's so cool to think that like, no matter where we are, whether we're in a pandemic right now or in a plague from the 13th century, same problems, same challenges, this thread of humanity that connects all of us. We worry about the same things. We want the same things. And it's just this great unifier to know that the same struggles have the same classic answers. And so it is. I'm 100% on board.
I love that because everyone thinks their problems are different. Everyone thinks I'm special. I'm different. I have this. Somebody has been through what you've been through. And so don't rest on I'm different. Find your people who can teach you what they've learned.
Amen to that. Well, Amy, you have taught us a lot this morning, and I know all the highlighters listening are going to be upping their morning routine game thanks to you. So thanks for joining us, and have fun in Connecticut, and I can't wait to hopefully get to meet you in person at some point.
I know.
We have so many mutual friends and just love your work. So I appreciate you being here.
Erin, thank you for thinking so much of me to be on. I appreciate it. And congratulations on the show.
Thanks, Amy. Talk to you soon.
Welcome.